everybody! Welcome to the Jayda InStitches show. Today we're going to make some circle motifs. We make a lot of motifs as crocheters. Sometimes we make them in squares, like a granny square or a mitered granny square. You turn them into blankets, ponchos, shawls, stuff like that. But you can also make circular motifs. Circular motifs can be turned into as many things as square motifs, and a great way to practice making circle motifs is to make coasters! Coasters go under your glass. They go under your coffee mug or your teacup, whatever you might have to put down on something, and they protect the surfaces in your home or your office from whatever might be in that cup, mug, or glass. So I'm going to show you how to make these really cute starburst coasters today, and I'm using cotton. Why am I using cotton? Well, cotton is a very safe material to use with most liquids. So if it's a hot mug, it's not going to melt or squish or get gross. And if it's a cold mug on a hot day and all that condensation's running down your glass, well, that cotton will just suck it up. And then once you're done with using them for, a week or so, and you maybe want to wash them up, just toss them in the washing machine, put them on a nice simple cycle, and they come out just as good as new. Cotton is a great, durable, quality fabric to use for coasters. So today we're going to make some starburst circular motifs out of cotton so that you've got yourself a nice set of coasters just in time for spring or maybe tomorrow morning's coffee. So grab your hooks, grab your yarn, grab your scissors. Let's head over to the craft table and make ourselves a set of coasters. To make our little coasters, we're going to use cotton worsted weight yarn. It's a 4-ply. Cotton's good because it absorbs moisture, like condensation. It also has a high melt point, so your coasters won't suffer melting if you put something hot down on it. And you can toss them in the washing machine really easy. I'm using a 4.25 millimeter hook, also known as a G6. You need a pair of scissors and a yarn needle, and once you've got all that, we can get started. We're going to begin with a cinch circle. And I'm going to make my circle a little bit bigger than I normally do. It's a little bit floppy, and this is kind of a tricky maneuver, so be patient with yourself. Remember, to make a cinch circle, you have to chain 1 to lock it into place, but we're going to be using the double crochet stitch to begin. So you want to chain 2 more on top of that, so that chain 3 that you've got coming out of your cinch circle counts as a double crochet. Into our cinch circles, we're going to work 15 double crochet. So your chain 3 counts as 1. We're going to work 15 double crochet into our cinch circle, and that'll give us a total of 16 when we're all finished. So like I say, this is sort of a tricky maneuver. You want to just be patient, take your time. Working this many tall stitches into a cinch circle takes a little more patience than maybe working a small amount of single crochets into a cinch circle. But once you get a few established, it gets a little easier. You've got something to kind of grab onto. So you can just work away at that. Remember, you want 15 double crochets plus your chain 3, and you'll have 16 double crochets at the end of this first row, which is the very center of our little coasters. Alright, I've completed 16 double crochet, and that includes my chain 3. I worked it over my short tail so that I can grab my tail now and cinch that circle shut. It doesn't have to be completely closed in, but you want it to be as small as possible. Then we're going to close row 1 by joining with a slip stitch to the top of the chain 3 that we made to begin. And I'm going to try and not confuse my short tail from my working thread. There we go. Alright, that is row 1. Now we're going to move on to row 2. So here's row 1. We've completed this nice little center where there's 16 double crochet into it. And now I want you to remember 16, because 16 is the magic number for this project. We're going to work row 2. Row 2 is clusters of 3 double crochets. So 3 double crochet clusters, or like a small bauble, and I'll show you those when we get into row 2. But at the end of row 2, you've got 16 of these cute little clusters. Then we move on to row 3 and we create some V's, and you're going to have 16 of these V's all the way around. And then row 4, we put on these fine little points all the way around. You're going to have 16 of those as well. So 16 is the magic number for our little coaster today. So here we go. We finished row 1. You should have a total of 16 double crochets. That includes that chain 3 you started with. You can ignore your short tail now. We can weave that in at the end. And now we are going to chain 3 to begin. 1, 2, 3. We're still working with double crochets, but now we're going to do something a little different. So we're going to work the first double crochet cluster into this stitch right here. We're going to ignore this little joining spot. We'll come back to that when we get around to the end, but we're going to work into this next proper stitch right here. So we're going to wrap our yarn and work this stitch right next to our chain 3, pick up a loop, and we're going to wrap and work the first set of loops. We're going to ignore it now, and we're going to start another double crochet into the same stitch. So wrap into that same stitch, pick up a loop, wrap. You're going to work the first 2 sort of loops of that second double crochet. Now, because this is the beginning cluster for our row, and we're going to include this chain 3 we made, you're going to wrap and pull back through all 3 of the loops that you should have on your hook now. This is a technical chain, I should say double crochet 3 or 3 double crochet cluster, but because we had to start with the chain 3, it's kind of a pretend one. But that is your first double crochet cluster. So now let's make a real one. We're going to chain 1, and we're going to chain 1 in between each cluster. That's going to give us some spacing and some turning because you want to keep that circular effect going. And we're going to work the very next stitch. So there's no skipping stitches. You're going to work every single one of those 16 stitches all the way around. And now we're going to work a proper 3 double crochet cluster. So we're going to wrap our yarn, go through the next stitch, pull up a loop, wrap, work the first set of loops, and forget about it. We're going to wrap our yarn to start another double crochet in the same place, pick up that loop, wrap your yarn, work the first set of loops, and forget about that one too. And one more, wrap, same spot, pick up a loop, work the first set of those double crochets. So it's getting a little tight. Real estate's a bit small in here. You should have 1, 2, 3, 4 loops on your hook. So there's your connector loop. There's the 3 half-worked double crochets. And now we're going to wrap, pull back through everything, and there is your 3 double crochet cluster. Note that there's only 1 chain that runs across the top of this. So technically this is just 1 stitch because there's only 1 stitch to work across the top of the whole thing. So if you look at it this way, and you kind of ignore that chain 3, we've worked 1, 2, 3 stitches. There's a double crochet cluster, a chain, and a double crochet cluster. But really all you have to do is count the clusters. So we've done 2 clusters now. We're going to chain 1 for a nice little space, identify the next stitch, and we're going to double crochet cluster into that one. So wrap, pick up a loop, work the first 2 loops or the first set, start another double crochet in the same place, work the first 2 loops or the first set of that one, start a third double crochet in the same place, work the first 2 loops or the first set of that one. You should have 4 loops on your hook, and now you can wrap and go through all of them. 3 double crochet cluster done. So now we've got 3 made. Chain 1. Let's work 1 more together here. You identify your next stitch, start a double crochet in it, and only work half of it. Start a second double crochet in the same spot, and only work half of that one. Start a third double crochet in the same spot, and only work half of that one. So It looks like this. There's your join, and there's the 3 half-worked double crochet stitches in that same little space. Wrap, pull back through all 4 of those loops, and that is what it looks like. So this is your first one. It's a bit funny, but it still counts as 1. We've done 4 so far. We've got a chain 1 spacer in between each cluster, and now you're going to want to do that all the way around for all of row 2. You're going to finish with 16 clusters, and there'll be 16 chain 1 spaces in between each cluster. Okay, so you can go ahead, work on your 3 double crochet clusters. Remember to chain 1 in between each cluster. And when we get around to the end of row 2, I'll show you how to join up, fasten off our color, and start with the pretty floral edging. Okay, I'm just nearing the end of row 2. I've got 15 clusters and 15 chain 1 spaces so far. And remember that first one looks a little funny, but it counts as 1. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Okay, and this is what I wanted to show you. So here's that funny little place right back at the beginning where our chain 3 kind of comes out. And remember I asked you to sort of start that cluster into the real stitch right next to it as opposed to working this one here. The reason I asked that is because I think working the final cluster into this proper looking stitch, A, makes it easier to sort of finagle, and B, I just think it looks a little bit neater when it's all said and done. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to work our final cluster into this little stitch right here that appears the chain 3 kind of come out of. So that's the plan. Remember to chain 1. You want to have a chain 1 space in between each cluster. And now we're just going to work that final 3 double crochet cluster into that last little stitch. There we go. And remember, you want one more chain 1. You have to have a spacer between that one and the finishing one. And then take a good close look at that first little cluster you created. Ignore your chain 3. Pick up that stitch that's technically on top of your chain, or your 3 cluster, your 3 double crochet cluster. So ignore the top of the chain 3, which is this little thing right here, and instead use the top. So the middle, very middle stitch that's on top of that cluster, because that's technically the top cluster stitch, or the stitch that runs across the top of your cluster. You're going to join with a slip stitch to that, and as you can see, it has made it look nice and solid all the way around. So that is row 2, and we've just completed that right here. And if you take a really close look at this and you know what you're looking for, you can probably find where my original join was. I think this might be it right here. But, I mean, to the unpracticed eye, they won't be able to see it. So, this is it for the center color. We're now going to snip our yarn. You don't need much, just enough to make a nice little tail out of. Pull it back through your loop. Give it a nice tight tug. And you can ignore that too. We can weave all of our ends in at the very end. That's why we have our yarn needle. So let's change colors. I think I'm going to do an orange starburst around the outside of this one now. So you grab your new color. You're going to make a slip knot. So no more cinch circles. Just a slip knot. There we go. And we're not bothering with the cluster stitches. We are now concerning ourselves with the chain 1 spaces. So you can go around and just sort of stick your finger in between all of your clusters just to sort of get an idea of where the space is that you're aiming for. You don't have to work a stitch, you're just working a space. So pick any space you like. Remember that that first cluster you made is a bit weird, so you don't want to stick your hook in between your chain 3 and your first double crochet. So maybe it's good to start just on the other side where you know that's a chain 1 stitch. and you're going to join with a slip stitch. There we go. You can also ignore that tail, stick it to the back, we'll weave them in later. And now you're going to chain 2, because now we're going to use the half double crochet stitch. So we're going to chain 2 in this first little space, and then we're just going to move on. So we're going to complete the little motif in this space when we get around back to the end. So chain 2 to start, and then skip into the next chain 1 space. So make sure you identify that space. You're skipping over top of that strange little cluster you made to start row 2. Make sure you've got the proper chain 1 space, and you're going to want to half double crochet into that space. So you wrap your yarn, put your hook through the whole space, not the stitch, pick up your loop, and then just wrap and go through everything. That is a half double crochet. Now here is the part of the motif that makes the V. You're going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3. And into this same chain 1 space, you're going to half double crochet again. So wrap into the same space, pick up a loop, and wrap and pull back through everything. There. So what you've done is created kind of a swooping V, or a big triangle or something. Now, we're going to do the same motif into the next chain 1 space. So identify your next chain 1 space, wrap, half double crochet directly into that space, chain 3, and half double crochet back into the same space. Yeah, pretty simple, right? So there's 2. Identify your next chain 1 space, half double crochet into it, chain 3, and half double crochet into the same space. Alright, and that is what it looks like. So you've got these cute little V's with a little boom, 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 boom all the way around. This we're going to finish when we get right back round to the beginning. So I want you to go around, work a half double crochet, chain 3, half double crochet into each of these chain 1 spaces. At the end, you'll have 16 in total, and you'll have 16 when we finish off what we started here at the beginning. But go ahead, work round 3, and once we get back round to the beginning, I'll show you how to finish off that little motif, and it'll look like there's no join whatsoever. Okay, here we are, back round to the beginning. This is where we started with our chain 2, and this is going to technically count as a half double crochet. I'm sure you all saw that coming. So you finished your 15th motif into that last chain 1 space, and we're going to finish with a finish of this last sort of motif in the first one we started in. So we're going to half double crochet into that first chain 1 space, chain 3, and then you're going to see this little, there's at the top of your chain 2, you've actually got sort of a little stitch. You can actually stick your hook right through it so that the top of your chain runs across your hook, and you're going to slip stitch just like that, and there you go. That is row 3 finished. So it's this part right here, all these pretty little, they almost look like little teardrops. And I guess with the blue background, it really looks like teardrops. So that is row 3. You should have 16 of these motifs, and now we're going to finish off with row 4, and this is where we put on these cute little points and picots. So you've joined with a slip stitch. You're going to be right next to this lovely chain 3 space that we created, and we're going to work directly into it. So you're going to single crochet now. You're going to put your hook directly into that space, so no chaining, no nothing. And you're going to single crochet 2 times. And remember, single crochet is no extra wraps. It's just pull up a loop and wrap and pull back through that loop. So 2 single crochets to start in that chain 3 space. You're going to chain 3, because this is going to create a little picot. So chain 3, and into the same chain 3 space, you're going to single crochet twice more. So if that sounds a little funny, I will go through it a few more times with you. So identify the next chain 3 space, or the next teardrop that we're working into. You're going to single crochet 2 times, right into that whole space, chain 3, this is your little picot, and into the same place, single crochet 2 more times. So into each teardrop, you're going to single crochet 2 times, chain 3, and then 2 single crochet. So 2 single crochet, chain 3, 2 single crochet, and that goes into every little teardrop all the way around. So one more time, we've got 2 single crochet into this space, chain 3, and 2 single crochet to finish in the same space. And there's no extra maneuvering between the teardrops. You want all of your work to pretty much, every single stitch works into a teardrop, so there's nothing in between. And that's how we get this a lovely little pointed sort of sun flare effect. So one more time, 2 single crochets into the next teardrop shape space, chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and 2 single crochet into the same space. And that's that. I'm going to let you continue that all the way around. You should have 16 lovely little points once you're finished. Once we get around back, I will do the last little chain 3 space with you, and I'll show you how to join, and then we can fasten off, and we're all done. Okay, I've done 15 of my pretty little points now. I'm back to the first little chain 3, or the last chain 3 space. This is where I joined my row 4. You can barely even see it, if you can see it at all. We're going to repeat the same motif in this last little chain 3 space. So 2 single crochets, chain 3, and 2 single crochets. There we go. That finishes off the last motif, and now you just want to find that first single crochet you made, slip your stitch or your hook into it, and just slip stitch to finish off. Snip your yarn, and make sure you grab that little tail, pull it through, and give it a nice tight tug. There we go. Now you can take all of those little tails, you should have 4 of them flapping around back there, grab your yarn needle and just run them in through the stitches along the back side of your cute little coaster here. And you know this is the back because A, this is where all your little tails are hanging out, and B, you see this extra bump line that's created by that the clusters that we made? It's not really on the front. You can sort of see the clusters. This looks something like a sunflower up front. Oh, wouldn't that be pretty with a little brown center? You can actually make these look like sunflowers. That'd be so cute. Anyway, this bump along the back, that big ridge, that gives me the indication that that's the back. And this is the front. So make sure you weave all of your ends in around the back, and then you can make as many of these as you like, just in time for some nice spring cocktails. So there you go. I now have a set of coasters for my coffee table, maybe my back patio, I'm not sure. The nice thing about them being cotton is that I can use them inside or outside, and like I said, if they get a bit gnarly, just toss them in the washing machine and they come out looking like new. Thank you so much for tuning in, everybody. That's it for this week. We will see you again next Friday for another video. Remember, you can like this video and subscribe if you haven't already, and that helps us out here at the InStitches family channel. And you can also share our videos with all of your crafty friends on all of the socials, and we appreciate that when you do. If you make yourself a set of coasters, I'd love to see them. You can post pictures to me on Google+, Instagram, and Pinterest. And I'm at Jayda InStitches in all 3 of those locations. Take care, stay crafty, and we'll see you next week. Bye, everybody!